بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. لله تبارك وتعالى. I praise Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. I thank Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala for the opportunity to spend the time that we're going to spend together. And we ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to continue to bless us with the opportunity to share beneficial knowledge and information with one another. As you benefit from me, likewise, I benefit from you. And I honestly believe when we concentrate on benefiting one another, that there will be, by the permission of Allah, complete benefit. When we concentrate on benefiting one another, by the permission of Allah, there will be complete benefit. And when we always open, we ask Allah to teach us that which would benefit us and to cause us to benefit from that which He has taught us. That's a very comprehensive supplication. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima alamtana. Then wazidna ilma. Oh Allah, teach us what would benefit us and cause us to benefit from that which you have taught us and increase us in knowledge. Very important that whenever we gather, that this is on our mind. So, in continuing what we left off yesterday, by the way, the reader is on vacation. May Allah allow her and her family to enjoy their vacation. So, we've been doing the scattered thoughts until she returns, but she hasn't returned yet. So, we'll just continue, inshallah, with scattered thoughts before we resume our regular reading. Does anyone remember the books that we're reading? Let me see if y'all got a pen in it. If you have a pen in it, what books are we reading? Make sure we're all on the same page. Oh. Good. Fatima, you on the sharp. You are really on key. Okay. So, yesterday, I started with a verse of the Quran. What verse was that? I didn't give you the number. It is Surah number 3, verse 110. So it was Surah 3, verse 110. And what did that verse talk about? So that's Surah number 3, Surah Al Imran, verse number 110. And what is this the subject of that verse? Or what is that verse content? Right. Exactly. MashaAllah. So we mentioned about that verse the nation of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where Allah said, "Kuntum khayru ummatin ukhrijat linnas, ta'maruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah." That you are the best nation, the finest. Let's read our translation of this Quran beheld. It says, "You have proved the finest nation of faith ever brought forth to mankind. You bid the right and forbid the wrong, and firmly believe in Allah." MashaAllah. Then we mentioned the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about bidding what is right or enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. And what was that hadith? What did it say? Allah. Come on, Fatima, you're winning. You're going to be the new leader of the women. I see you at that keyboard going. Okay, right. Change it with your hand, then with your tongue, and then with your heart when you see an evil, right? So then we talked about engaging and cooperating with each other, which is part of enjoining right and forbidding wrong, which is the objectives, among the objectives of the sacred law. So we classify in terms of being correct and then going to what is incorrect. We talked about the correct way to follow Islam is to follow the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And when we said Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we categorized Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah according to the primary Islamic sciences. And then we identified who were Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. What did we say? We mentioned those three categories. What did we say? Allah. Okay, Wafia, stepping up. Where are the brothers? We cannot continue this massacre. Come on, brothers. Help us out here. Get in the game. Okay. And ihsan. Okay, we said Ahl Sunnah follow Ashari, Maturidi, and Aqidah, and Al Fiqh, Hanafi, Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali. And what else? Just Iman and Ihsan. Iman and Islam. What about Ihsan? Tasawwuf. That's right, Sufyan. Say, I ain't scared. Good. So that's Ahl Sunnah. And that methodology is the methodology of Islam. So that's the correct methodology of Islam. Then we mention a second category. What was the second category? So we talked about the first category, the correct and proper way to follow Islam, which is the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. We mentioned that. Now, the second thing we mentioned was what? So the second thing is you have a practice presented as Islam with notions that are incorrect, but those notions, they haven't reached the level of disbelief. So what would those notions be called in the second category? So those ideas or those notions or those practices, they didn't reach the level of disbelief. So what would they be called? Allah, bid'ah. And bid'ah means what? Okay, bid'ah means what? I want to help you with something. We need to do this. I'm going to give you something real quick, and I want you to get into this habit. While you do both, the last three in our code is 3453. What is that last three? In the code 3453, what is the last three? A da'wah, right? And please don't forget number three in the last, the number three of the last three in the 3453 code, a da'wah. After all we learn and practice, and we have to do a da'wah, get in the habit of having a da'wah in your mind whenever you talk. For us, the vast majority of us, probably 95% of us, when we give a da'wah, who are the people most likely that we're going to be giving a da'wah to? And in what language? 95% of us. Who are we probably going to be giving da'wah to, and in what language? Okay, Shaheed. Ebonics, good. English, Ebonics, good. In our native language, right? So therefore, when you're talking, even if you're using Arabic terms, please translate them simultaneously while you're using them. Why? Because you're not talking in the language of a people that understand you, and they're going to miss key elements that may be necessary for them to understand the deen, the religion, because we're in the habit of using terminology without thinking about da'wah. Yeah, use your Arab accent in your English, but just say it in English. Doesn't matter. Just say it in English so that you make sure the people you're talking to understand. I don't know how many times we're talking, and people know they don't understand what we said, or they miss points, and they'll never say, "Could you tell me what that means?" They'll just let it go and miss the whole point. So let's get in that habit, right? And most of our people that are affected by innovations and disbelief and false notions and blasphemous notions and vile behavior, corrupt manners, most of our people that we deal with and interact, are they getting that in the Arabic language or the English language? All those things I described, are they getting that in the Arabic language or the English language? Right. Most of the kufr in the world today is coming by way of the English language. Even our people who get bad ideas about Islam, the route that they're getting it is translation, not through uh, the Arabic language. So just keep it in mind. I'm talking about for da'wah purposes. Because when we give da'wah, there are more people that know nothing about Arabic that we can reach than there are among our people who know Arabic or anything about Arabic. And one of the mistakes that we have fallen into is we've made our Islam foreign to our people. And that's a mistake. I'm realizing this more and more every day. I'm realizing we made some serious blunders and we have to fix them. Right? Because people are not interested. And I'm going back to my point, but I told you I had scattered thoughts, right? This morning, I woke up thinking about the round table for tomorrow. And you know what came to my mind? It's something that we need to discuss. Y'all don't realize that the round table scattered thoughts too. Did y'all notice that? The round table, the Black Imam's round table, is scattered thoughts collectively. We don't really plan. We just hit what we know, what comes to us that we think is important, and we talk about it. We don't sit around. It ain't no stage show. It's straight up, boom, right? Uh, which I think is more genuine. I'm not, we really talking about the issue as we see it, not as we prepared it. So I was thinking, what does Islam have to offer us as a people and a society? That came to my mind. What does Islam have to offer us as a people and a society? So, us as a people directly and a society as a whole. I was thinking about that. And what made me think about it before I went to bed, I was listening to a speech, and the speaker said that two funeral processions, janazas, two separate funeral processions, people were gunned down at the funeral, at the janaza, in the line, in the janaza, people were gunned down. In America, Muslims. Something seriously wrong. Like, I mean, seriously wrong. Just look at that picture. There's a Muslim funeral, and the kuffar come, non-Muslim police officers, law enforcement, and news, and everyone looking. And a sacred space like a funeral, there's no reverence. Like, think about that. Think about that picture in terms of dawah. Think about, I'm talking about number 3, knowledge, practice, and inviting da'wah, calling to Allah. What kind of calling is that? As a non-Muslim, if you're looking at that on the news or witnessing it, or your family's telling you what happened at the funeral, what kind of picture are you going to have of Islam? Like, really? We may expect, and even that, we may expect that from some gangbangers, right? And they just totally unconscious. And that's not even expected much from them. It has happened. It's not something new. But you definitely don't expect that in your wildest imagination at a Muslim funeral. Now let me explain this to you. Because in our community, Muslims used to be considered used to, and I want to emphasize the word used to, the most outstanding and moral citizens in the community. That's how we used to feel about Muslims, especially in the Black community. The good brother, the good sister that was worthy of respect and honor. And the criminal, when they saw the Muslim coming, would hide their criminal activity until you pass by. It used to be like that. And that was across the board for Muslims. I remember as a kid going in the projects as a kid with my white robe and my white kufi and my oils and incense. And the drug dealers would be like, here come the good brother, man. Put that away, put that away. And they would buy stuff from me just to support the good brother that they didn't want. This guy done brought the same oil 5 times every time I walk through, just to support the good brother. And I would submit that that was lost when we became other than ourselves and disconnected from our communities. I would submit that was the root of it. And then when we didn't have no value for that other concept that we picked up that took us outside ourselves, we ourselves lost respect for Islam together because it no longer reflected us. Sometimes indoctrination and colonization and subjugation is deeply rooted in the subconscious, and you won't notice till you see its traces. It's there. If I don't feel that I'm a part of something, I'm not going to have value and respect for it. It doesn't belong to me. I have no buy-in. So I'm saying all that, even when we talk, think of dawah. Let alone how we act, how we engage, just think of dawah. So when I'm asking you, even if you use your Arabic terms, that's great, mashallah, what Allah willed, you are so good. But please don't forget, you're going to be conveying. And you need to make the deen, Islam, relevant, attainable to your audience. That's important. It's so important. And I'm going to share something with you about that from a non-Muslim. A brother, my brother, in fact, not just a friend. My brother is like my friend, so we're very close, right? He said something to me one day, and I'm going to tell you about the second part. So now, I'm going to tell you what he said from the second category. Oh, and I'm going to tell you that joke I meant to tell you. It both relate. So just remind me. So the second category we mentioned after the correct way to understand and follow Islam, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, we mentioned the category of it is Islam, but it has in it notions that need to be corrected, incorrect notions or practices. And they are innovations, right? Which we say in Arabic, we call that innovation as bid'ah. And when we say innovation, I want you, don't just say innovation say blameworthy or vile innovation. There's a difference. So blameworthy or vile innovation, not just innovation in general, because according to the first methodology, not every innovation is bad. Some innovations are praiseworthy and good and necessary and recommended, right? Even obligatory. Some innovations. So, despite the popular rhetoric of the second category, every innovation is haram, and that second category, their definition of innovation is in itself an innovation. Write that. The second category, which it is Islam, but it has notions that are incorrect. Those notions, like the notion that every innovation is bad, in and of itself is an innovation, a vile innovation that needs to be corrected. So we say blameworthy innovations, vile innovations, because there are innovations that are not blameworthy. In fact, as I said, there are the innovations that are obligatory to do, recommended, permissible. But that's another subject. So now, in terms of da'wah, unfortunately, in our environment, in the world today now, seriously, Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah, in appearance, in selected areas, may not be the majority of the common people. Rather, the second category in many environments is the dominant category among Muslims in some areas, in many areas. Even though Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the people of the Sunnah and the majority of the Muslim nation, which are reflected as being the Asharis and Maturidis in creed, the Hanafis and the Malikis and the Shafis and the Hanbalis in practice, jurisprudence, and the people of Sufism in spirituality, that is Ahl-Sunnati wal Jama'ah as a whole, historically and globally, but in given areas, your encounter with Muslims, unfortunately, is going to be often the second category. They're Muslim, but they have notions that need to be corrected, or practices that need to be corrected by design from certain quarters of the Islamic world. Right? Therefore, you have to engage this second category as a person who's trying to learn or has learned Islam properly. So, for instance, I'll give you like in my city. The second category, in terms of numbers, by default, is the majority category, is the majority among what is known as the Muslims, either intentionally or by default. So if you would come to my city, Atlantic City, you will, and went not to Masjid Muhammad, and you went to somewhere else, you're going to see that second category abundant. That's real. And in a lot of cities, it's like that, unfortunately, in America. I'll show you. Can we get a city check real quick? Can we get your cities, where you're from? City and state, quickly. Can we check in real quick? City, state. I just want to get a quick, see if I'm right in this. Tampa, Florida. Okay, go ahead. Let's see where we at. It's also get to know who we're reaching. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Houston, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, Brooklyn, New York, St. Louis, Missouri, Brooklyn, Go Bucks, Florida, Wichita, Kansas, Miramar, Florida, Jamaica, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, Camden, Africa, Trenton, New Jersey, Cleveland, Ohio, Manhattan, Houston, Detroit. We get an idea, right? And there are more. The shy people don't answer, they just listen. Tell you. Fort Myer, Florida, subhanAllah. So we described the first category, right? I want to show you something. We described the first category of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Al-Ash'ari wal Maturidiyya wal Hanafiyya wal Malikiyya wal Shafi'iyya wal Hanabila wa Ahl Tasawwuf. Right? How many of you in your areas go to masjids or Islamic centers where that is clearly expressed with no ambiguity? It's clearly expressed that this is our methodology of Islam. No ambiguity, straight, clear expression of all your cities. Not guessing, it's clear from the minbar, from the classes, from the literature, it's clear. This is our methodology. No hesitation, no maybe, I think, possibly. No, straight up clear, explicit. So what that means, what does it mean? My point. The second category is abundant, even by default. And what I mean by default, meaning because of what has reached us in this country and the way the religious knowledge reached us, it reached us in mass from the second category. That's why we don't hear the first category. So that means, right? Right? That means that we have to engage at the second level extensively if we're wise. We have to learn to engage at the second, because most of it is not intentional, it's by default. Those who are intentionally spreading the second category in reality are few, but they're active, loud, and financed. You heard what I said? Most of it is by default. People just don't know, so they take whatever they hear. But the ones who are intentional, they are diligent, persistent, loud, and financed. So therefore, even though they're small, they're effective in spreading the second category, right? From our side, we understand the error in that. And our job in da'wah no. Let me challenge you on that, Farouk. You want to come in and have a public debate on it? You're welcome. I'll invite you in right now for a public discussion on this, right? I think about this stuff a lot. A friendly discussion, right? I think about this a lot. Most of us who have fallen into innovations in creed and practice, we don't realize that that's an innovation. Let's take a poll. By now, we know innovation. We already described what that is. We don't have to say names. No need. Because once we establish what is Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah well, unambiguously, then what is other than that obviously falls into the second category. Is that clear? Once we clearly define what is Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, in creed there are the Asharis and Maturidis. In al-fiqh, they are the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafis, the Hanbalis. In at-tasawwuf, they are the people of tasawwuf through the various turuk or spiritual paths. So that's Ahl-Sunnah. So obvious, what is other than that falls into the second category if they are still Muslim. That's clear, right? Nah, Farouk is challenging Saifullah. We got to debate him. You know me. Have you ever seen me run from a debate, Saif? Saifullah saw me in a dungeon debating. I don't run from no debate. But no, I'm joking. No, seriously. Most of us, by default, fall into that stuff. We don't know. And you know how most of us fall into it? Because we thought, many of us, the more Arab looking or sounding you are, the more true you are, correct you are. So by default, we fell into that. By default, not intentionally. So, and that's important to understand when we interact. Most people don't know. They don't know what they're hearing. They haven't had the opportunity to learn properly. It wasn't available. So when you're engaging, you got to think about that. And sometimes we didn't. We just say, people of innovation, they're wrong, and boom, start smacking them upside the head. And this is wrong. Oh, all right, Farouk, you know, you always shooting some stuff. I thought you was talking to me. I'll give you, I will take smoke for 1,000, Alex. You know I'm looking for smoke, right? Especially from you, right? Right? So, no, even the immigrants, they don't know. The immigrants, they don't know either. I studied in the Middle East. They don't know. They just as victim as us. It's just they're not. We're more interested in religious practices as a people than a lot of the immigrants who came here, because they came here for dunya, not for deen, right? For the worldly stuff, not for religion. They had religion in their own countries if they wanted to do that. They didn't come here for religion. Most of them, they came for something else, for a better life. And there's nothing wrong with trying to get a better life. So their concern wasn't religion. So they wasn't learning religion when they were home. Many of them became religious when they interacted with us, believe it or not, because they came to originally to our masajid and they interacted with us and they saw our religiosity and it pushed them to be religious. So a lot of them learned their deen, their religious practices from us by way of emulation. We revived something in them. They were Muslim, but not like really practitioners. Many of them. I see it in the masjid all the time. Right? All right. So let's go to point number 2. So point number 2 is dealing with that second category, is how we're going to do that. And we have to consider that this is the real work of da'wah for us at the first level. Our first contact within Islam is this category. And I'm going to tell you something what I've learned. It's a hard lesson. So I'm sharing with you because I learned the hard way. You know, like the old folks used to say, I'm telling you, boy, so you don't do what I did. Learn from other people's mistakes. So you can learn from my mistake and others like me. The way you engage at that level is you look for common ground before differences. Let's put that down. Number 1, they are Muslim first. You must recognize if their innovation did not reach the level of disbelief. I qualified my statement. They are Muslim if their innovation didn't reach the level of disbelief. And until you learn well the difference between innovation and disbelief, al-bid'ah, innovation, vile innovation, blameworthy innovation, and al-kufr, disbelief, treat that person as a Muslim. That's the default position. If you can't distinguish between what is a vile innovation and what is disbelief, you must treat that person as a Muslim. I'm getting ready to share some points to you that will help us as a people. And I only learned this the hard way. And I'm still trying to implement what I know. So I'm not good at it at all. But I do realize from experience and from learning what we need to do, even though I'm horrible at doing it. I admit I'm horrible at doing it. And I'll tell you why I'm horrible at doing it so you don't fall into that trap either. All right. So the first thing, when you encounter them, look for common ground. What do we share that is not controversial between us? It's not a source of controversy and disagreement. What do we share? Now I'm getting ready to hit you with something. In our communities, I'm speaking for myself. You know the first thing you share in our communities, we all Black. And our Black experience is a common thing no matter who you are or what you believe. We have, just by the mere fact of being an African American or Black, we have so many shared experiences that we can cooperate with. I'm serious. And we need to cooperate in those areas. It's a necessity as a humanitarian effort. We need to cooperate on those grounds alone. Extremely important. Let me give you an example. We're not even talking about the deen. It is the deen, it is Islam, but not directly, right? Right? Listen to my point. January 6th, the insurrection, right? 2021, right? All of y'all are aware of that, right? They're having the hearings on now, right? They're having the hearings on the insurrection, right? When the majority of white Americans, the majority of the people who did it were white Americans. They raided the Capitol. I want to show you something. We know this stuff, we just don't talk about it. Because someone told us in Islam, we don't talk about life. I don't know who told us that, but I do know who told us that, but that's another notion that we got to get rid of. I'm going to ask all of you, even if you're not African American, let's flip that. We saw what's happening. We see these hearings. We see all this stuff. Let's reverse that scenario. And the majority of the people who attacked the Capitol that day were Black. What would that look like? I want to know from y'all, African Americans and others, what would that would have looked like? If that, reverse it, all the majority of the people who attacked the Capitol were Black. What would that would have looked like? In your opinion? Let me see if we can get an idea. All right, whoa, I forgot. Whoa, stop. I forgot. Stop. They won't read. Stop. Don't put no more. Please stop. I forgot. My fault. See what kind of world we live in? You can't put the answer. I forgot. You get yourself in trouble. They monitor words and they'll say you inciting violence. They don't get the context. So don't put it no more. Stop. I'm sorry. This is a mistake. We're getting ready to lose the whole class. Oh, man. We're getting ready to use the whole class. See what kind of world we live in? You can't even have a real talk. All of you are getting ready to get a notice from Facebook. All of y'all going to be in jail. I had to give you an example. That's what it'll look like, but worse. So all of us realize it will look totally different. So what that should tell you, it should tell you that we all realize we're being treated unfairly. All of us realize that. And no one can tell us different, because not one of us said they wouldn't have arrested us, they would have let us go home, and then they would have took over a year to figure out who they're going to put in jail. And some of us would have said, I have executive privilege. Yeah, you got executive privilege, all right, right? So that means we all understand certain things about our context and our reality. And couldn't no one tell us nothing different, right? So there's a common ground. And when we're engaging with us, when you have a common ground, that's a way you unite at the heart level, right? Right? At the heart level. At the heart level. Because you realize, hey man, we suffering the same, you and me. And we all trying to get out of our suffering. And I have a way to get us out of that suffering. It's called Islam. And now I got to give you the why. That's a dialogue right there. We all agree. So we're not going to use Islam to further oppress ourselves. We're not going to use our Islam as a means to divide and conquer us. We already suffering. Islam didn't come to make us suffer more. Islam came to remove our suffering. So if we Muslims and our conditions among each other is the same as it was before Islam, then hey, we're missing something here. We're missing something. We're missing something. Bro, we're missing something big time. And guess what? If you study the trend of that second group and the learned of that second group, especially from our communities, you notice that they're recognizing that themselves. They're recognizing it themselves. While they still have ideas that need to be corrected, that one, they recognizing that was a mistake. And likewise, many of us are recognizing that that's a mistake, right? From both sides. So there's a common ground, one. And there may be other common grounds. I'm just giving you, just as a people, certain things we realize. When you get in the car, you got to be concerned. When I get in the car, I got to be concerned. We're both in a society dealing with the same reality. That's a concern. That's a ground by which we can build on. That's a commonality. Now move within Islam. There are many common things within the deen that we agree with. We're going to discuss those issues, so they're off the table. They don't need to be discussed. And when we put them in a category, right? And then we put where we differ in a category, we'll see that our differences are not as many as our points of agreement. And it won't become so personal, because we realize now we only have a few things to fix, but most of the things we agree on within the religion. And there are a few issues that we need to iron out. So let's not highlight that to forget all of the things we have in common. That's number two. So one is outside, the second is inside the deen. The third aspect is even in our differences, they were imported to us. We didn't make them up. Our differences were imported to us. We didn't make them up. Put that up. Our differences were imported to us. We did not make them up. That's important to think about. Our differences were imported to us. We didn't make them up. Our default position in becoming Muslim was not these differences for none of us. Someone taught us those differences and then told us how to treat each other based on the differences that they gave us that initially we knew nothing about. And when we became Muslim, none of us became Muslim with those differences in mind. Not one of us. Someone told us that and then told us how to deal with others who don't have the ideas that we have. We didn't come up with that ourselves. None of us. Would you agree with that point? Think about it and tell me, do you agree? The differences that we have, us, we didn't come up with them. Someone told us those differences and then told us how to feel about the other based on those differences. And let me explain something to you. Now I'm going to hit. That came from people in category 1 and category 2. They hit us on both ends with this part. They didn't just teach us the differences and tell us this is how you engage with these differences. They taught us the differences and used them so we can stick with them. This is some heavy psychology when you think about it. We're not malicious, so we don't think like this. Most of us, we're not malicious. We came to Islam to be good people. We don't think like maliciously. Unfortunately, when dealing with us, people are cruel. So they gave us ideas, right or wrong, but the way they gave them to us helped to divide us further. But they benefited from our division because they had free support for their own ideas that had no effect on us. Some deep stuff. And you want me to show you that? On both sides of the scale, we've never become leaders. We've always remained followers. To whom? To the ones who imported those ideas to you. They never, ever allowed you to become a leader. You must always be in a position of servitude on both ends. That's some deep stuff. I want you to think about that. On both ends. That's why I'm unapologetically black. My eyes is wide open. Seriously. It's sad that you have to come to this realization, but it's real. When you think about it, it's sad, but a hardcore truth. hardcore truth. It hurts. It hurts when you really think about it and you observe. It hurts. But it's real. I'm going to give you the dalil. You know, so give me your proof. Where's your dalil, Ak? Where's our leaders? From either one. Where's our leaders that we agree upon are leaders? We don't have. With all these years, shouldn't we have leaders? Shouldn't we have scholars? Shouldn't we have sheikhs that we agree these are scholars and sheikhs? Even if we disagree, we agree that these are our scholars and sheikhs. These are our references. Every nation has that. Not us. Think about that. Not even in each group do we have that. So if you take level number one of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, take the blacks who are Ash'ari, Maturidi, take those who are Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, Sufi. Among us, African Americans, who's the leaders among them that we pick? We don't. We don't. But we'll point outside of us to someone else quickly. After all these years, we don't have any leaders. All the African Americans who went over and studied, none of them are now qualified to be leaders for their people. That's historically and globally insane. No one does that and has allowed it to happen to them but us. So it's a waking up that we need. And definitely among the people who are in the second category is the same thing. So we're all victims. We have that in common. And when I say victims, and when I mean victims, I mean our victimization through religion, because other than that, we wouldn't accept it. We wouldn't accept that normally. But through religion, that's how it was pulled off on us. That has nothing to do with the religion. That just has how it was received to us. And we got to fix it. It's no problem. Other people around the world have dealt with this too. They just didn't deal with it the way we did. Every nation had to deal with this issue. But we came divided, where other nations had more common ground to protect themselves. They still were hit, they still were affected, but not as bad. So I want us to think about that. And since that's the case from all of us, engagement between us is very important to restore us to what we need to be doing so Islam can help us. It's important. And you and me have to have the courage to realize what is going on and to work on fixing it. And it's not going to happen overnight. Please, I know we got this microwave mentality. This is not going to be a microwave meal. This is going to be a slow cooked crock pot, is that what you call it? Meal on real low. It's going to take a while, right? Because it's been so entrenched in our practice and in our ideology that it's almost reached our DNA. So don't expect this to happen overnight, and don't get tired of the talk. That's another trick. Why do you keep talking about that? Because we keep dealing with it. We can't stop talking about it till it doesn't exist. We can't stop talking about it till it doesn't exist. We got to toss it over, examine it, look at it another way, cross-examine it, re-examine it, double-examine it, until we get it. And the first thing that we have to do is we must, it's a necessity that we chart our own course in Islam. We must. We have to. And that is not negotiable. We must chart our own course. It's absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. And in Islam, it is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with it in the deen. In the religion, when you learn the religion, there's nothing wrong with a people helping themselves in every aspect of life. There's nothing wrong with it. Right? Nothing wrong with it at all. Every nation, every people must do it. It's the Quranic imperative. We just missed the email when it came to us. It went in our junk mail, way deep in there, lost somewhere. So there is, to do that, there's going to be a lot of studying. Now, let me give you the downside of that, which is our mistake. Us who are exposed to this imported, divisive understanding of Islam. Divisive for us. They didn't do it for them. They still build. They used it to subjugate us. And that takes travel to see what I'm talking about. You won't see it if you haven't traveled. But if you travel enough and you've been to enough countries and places and seen it on the ground, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The one who's never traveled won't understand this part. So we have to say, hey, this is not working for us. We wanted to be Muslim. That's all we were looking for. But in order to be Muslim, you have to learn Islam. And we've never been given a straight shot at learning the deen without someone else's influence for their upliftment. We didn't just get Islam. We got Islam with somebody's politics, even if it's religious politics. Would we concur to that? Most of the Islam that we received was received along with someone's politics, even if they were religious politics. Am I right or wrong? If you study and think about it, is this true or false? We can't fix the situation if we don't know what it is. So I have to talk about it. If we want to fix something, we have to know what's wrong. We can't fix something we don't know what's wrong. With that being said, now we have to learn Islam that's devoid of someone's politics. And be patient in discovering what that looks like. That's a journey in and of itself. That's a journey in and of itself. And that takes a lot of honesty, because sometimes it's going to go against your own teachers. And that's going to hurt. Man, that's a hard pill to swallow. That hurts. Man, that is a hard pill to swallow. When you realize, man, my own teachers fell into this. No one's perfect. And once we realize that, then I'm not going to hate you because you fell into it. You just didn't catch the game. But I can't let that affect me. You didn't catch the game. But I can't let that affect me. Has nothing to do with Islam. In fact, it's counterproductive to the Islamic message. But I love you and I'm going to tell you. So even when I have these conversations with my teachers, they be looking at me like, Imam Amin is crazy. But are you right? I have these conversations with my teachers, like straight up. Straight up, no chaser. They understand. And one of them told me, because of it, you have to do your work. I can't help you in that. You're right, but I don't know what to do. Two high-ranking teachers of mine told me that exact thing. Listen, you're right, but I can't help you. I don't know how to do that. That's your job. That's a deep thought, right? You're right, but I can't help you. I don't know how to do that. You have to do that. And whatever I can do to help you, I'm here for you, but I can do it. Whatever you need to do it, I'll help you. But I myself cannot do it. I don't even know how. I don't even know where to begin. I fully don't even understand. Except that you talking to me like this, I would have never heard this stuff. Let me give you an example. I'm going to say something that's going to be to show you what I'm talking about. Something we need the most, we as a people, is the methodology of the descendants of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way they conveyed generation to generation in practice and established Islam. We need that. I'm going to show. And I'm going to be a little vague so I don't hurt nobody. So I'm going to be a little vague, but just give the point. There is, like, the methodology of Imam al-Haddad, for instance, right? Which we read in on Wednesdays. When the reader comes back, we'll resume. The work of Imam al-Haddad, which is a summary of the work of al-Ghazali, right? The way they reach that is excellent for us within our context when we do it. Excellent. It covers every 3453 is that embodied for us. Unfortunately, those who received that have no connection with us. And unfortunately, they took it as their own property and they dealt with it in a way that we wouldn't accept. So we missed the product. And we would do the best with that product if it was given to us correctly. I had this discussion with one of my teachers from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I told him, be careful of how the da'wah, this message, is conveyed in the United States. It can backfire. And he was looking at me like, I said, America, its society has a deep effect on how people think in America. If you bring Islam on the same scale as the general white America has treated things, it's going to be rejected by the black people. And you've missed the mark. You've missed the mark. Be careful of that. Follow the way of your great-great-grandfather, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Concentrate heavily on the poor. Do not ignore the poor because the rich facilitate for you. The rich will facilitate for you and block you from the poor. Be careful. And if you could have saw his face, he was like, he saw what I'm saying once I explained it. And he was like, man, I never would have imagined that. I see what you're saying. I never even paid it no attention. I never paid it no attention. I didn't even notice it because I'm not from there. I don't know what's going on. He said, but you have to do that work. I'll help you, but you have to do it. Because I don't really fully understand. I know what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I'm observing it now that you mentioned it. Now that I look. But before I'm looking, I don't know what I'm seeing. Right? But now after you saying it, and then I look, I take a 2020, oh, no, say hindsight is 2020. Yeah, after the fact. I didn't even notice the damage that has happened to us in many ways. So for us, we have to realize our situation. And if we, I'm telling you, if we learn how to engage at the second level, we're going to change the game. Now, my mistake and the mistake of others, I'm talking about Sunni, Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, is we took the knowledge And while disagreeing, rightfully so, with the second category, we developed a hatred in our heart for them based on someone else's politics. And we forgot all common ground that we have together. That was a mistake. A major error. So now we didn't even see each other almost as Muslims. We didn't. We saw each other as enemies because of the way someone else told us to interact with each other, which was a mistake. And we did that for over 30 years now. Mistake. Our side taught us that, and their side taught them that. Our side subjugated us, their side subjugated them. Same game that was done in before we were Muslims in our communities by someone else who taught them. SubhanAllah. Who taught them. They taught them how to deal with us for their benefit. Or they learned how to deal with us through them for their benefit and our demise. Let's wake up. The white man was overseas before us. I'm talking about as the government. Listen, this is serious stuff. These wasn't Muslim righteous people in the Middle East mixing with these people. These were non-Muslims with a plan. And it didn't include us as it didn't include us here. And they learned firsthand from them. They went to their schools, they interacted with them politically, they interacted with them in business at high levels. While we weren't involved. And they said, listen, this is how they were successful in dealing with them. Let's bring them to us through our religion, and we can use them the same. Subconsciously, that's what they were doing, even if they, and some of them said it. Some of them said it to each other. I've been in the rooms. I've been in the rooms. I've heard it. So for us, there's this need to fix this issue. And you have to be courageous to fix this issue. And if we fix this issue, it'll be easy for us to bridge the gap that prevents us even from dialogue. Because dialogue doesn't always mean argumentation. In fact, true dialogue never leads to argumentation. Argumentation ensues when you don't want to do true dialogue, and that means you have something else in your mind. If you understand my point, I'm tired of looking at this. I hope all of y'all are too, right? But I kind of have an idea some of the things we need to do. Then we need to get together and come up with the rest of the things we need because there's a lot to it, right? So that's number two. And that's some ideas of how we have to engage. Tomorrow, I'm going to highlight differences that we need to work on and how we should approach those differences. Tomorrow, that's where I'm going. Because we know number 3 is things that's disbelief. So that's the last category in the form of Islam. And that one is not, there's no room with that. We have to fix it. I mean, we have to reject it. And there is no negotiation there. There is no way when you get to the 3rd category, disbelief in the form of Islam. We can't accept that. But that 2nd category is a lot of work right there. Right? It's a lot of work there. And what we're going to need in the 2nd category to do that work is the 3rd aspect of number 3. The 3, 4, 5, 3. The first 3, the 3rd aspect of that first 3, we're going to need that to deal with the 2nd category, which is what? The 3rd aspect of the first 3 and 3, 4, 5, 3 is what? Let's see if we got it. Right. Sufism. We need clean hearts. Our hearts got to be clean to do that work. You have to really want good for the other. You have to really have a clean heart to do that. So all those negative attributes, we have to remove them so we can do this work. We can't be Sufis without Sufism. We can't be Sufis without Tasawwuf. That doesn't work. We actually have to practice what we preach. Internally, at the heart level, which is not easy because we're taught to fight and hate one another. I want to tell you this before I close out. I remember, and I said this was my mistake. My brother was non-Muslim. He said to me, me and him's tight. He said to me some time ago, this was a while ago, and it woke me up when he said it. He said, when I hear you say Wahhabi, he's not Muslim, right? He said, I think you saying MFer. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That's how mean-spirited, when I said the word, it appeared to him. He thought it was a curse word. He had no idea of it was a religious difference. He looked like that's wartime for him. Then when I was explaining to him, he said, oh, I ain't know, man. That's how you say it. And it was one time in my city that the people from my neighborhood who were non-Muslims were always ready to go to war to fight against Wahhabis. They're not even Muslim because of the way they used to hear us talk with each other. So at the end of the day, they would be like, y'all got y'all religious stuff, but he's from our neighborhood, and if it go, it's going. Right? Like, that's how bad we were at one time. It's not like that no more. I remember, I never forget it. We got so bad that the people from my neighborhood went to them and said, listen, I don't know nothing what y'all talking about. But as soon as it go, trust me, it's going. And the imam from them, and one of them, he came to me and said, listen, this is getting out of hand. I didn't have nothing to do with it. That's how bad we were. That was a mistake. We didn't even think about it. Now, the people don't even know what we're talking about. But because of the way we're dealing with each other, people's like, hey, the line is in the sand. It go, it's going. We don't usually get in y'all business. But if it go there, it's going there. Right? That's because how we were dealing with each other. Mistake. Big mistake. Because they looked at us like we was just, all right, well, y'all gangs, and this is my gang too. Right? Seriously, it's sad. But that was a mistake of how we used to dialogue. So we have to change that dialogue. And others put that in our minds, not realizing what we would do with it. I don't think they realized who we were and what we're going to do with that type of stuff. And I remember rebuilding a mirror. Can I share you? Because me and him has this talk. He knows where I'm from, right? And he was with those type of ideas. And they used to be talking reckless like that, right? And I laughed when he told me that, because if they would have talking reckless and we talking reckless, man, it would have been a mess, right? Like, if Allah didn't protect us, walillahi alhamd, it would have been a mess, right? And in some communities, it was a mess. Alhamdulillah, Allah protected us from that. But we need to learn from that and know how we need to engage. So we need to turn down the temperature and don't allow anyone else to turn it up. We need to turn down the temperature, and we can't allow nobody else to turn it up. And in the only way we're going to do that, when we mature, that we can have true necessary dialogue with love from the heart level. Do you follow my point? Turn down the temperature, have true dialogue. We're not saying ignore the issue. Have true loving dialogue. And realize it ain't our fault. This has been projected on us, and we're going to push it right back where it came from. And then we're going to deal with each other with love and understanding and patience and forbearance, inshallah, till we collectively do something good for ourselves. Right? That's something we have to do. So my advice is don't make such hostility between us where we can't even dialogue. Don't do that. And when we do it, somebody got to be conscious to say, hey, it's too hot in here, turn down the temperature. Among us, somebody has to be conscious all the time, say, turn down the temperature. So somebody always got to be realizing, pay attention to the temperature. Is it getting too hot in here? Turn it down. That got to be a collective mindset. It's too hot, turn the temperature down. You overcooking the food, turn it down, bro. We all want to enjoy the meal. Right? That's work. I'm not saying this is easy, and I'm definitely not good at it. Sometimes I just turn the heat all the way up to broil you. Let's do it. I'm working on it, but I have their mindset still that I'm trying to get rid of. Be honest. I'm still working on it. So that point, don't do that. From either side, and give us a chance to learn the difference. Stop treating each other like kuffar, and we haven't even distinguished between innovation and kufr, right? So don't deal with each other like that. No matter what somebody else try to tell us, right? And I want to give you a rule my teacher taught me. He said, you will never, Sheikh Walid spent a long time on this discussion last night. He said, you will never be held accountable for having a good opinion of someone and be wrong. You will never be held accountable for having a good opinion of someone and being wrong. But you will be held accountable for having a bad opinion of someone and be wrong. Put that up. You will never be held accountable for having a good opinion of someone and be wrong. But you will be held accountable for having a bad opinion of someone and being wrong. That's how you have to deal with people. Always err on the side of having a good of opinion, especially of Muslims. Err on that side. If you're going to err on the side of having a good opinion. You can never go wrong with that. You can never go wrong. Lastly, I want to tell you a story one of my brothers told me the other day. And that was about the Arabic terms, not using Arabic terms and people not understanding because you're using Arabic. So someone asked him, he's a teacher, someone asked him a religious rule. He said, in the deen, that's haram. And the person responded, you keep telling me about the deen. I want to know what Allah says. Allahu Akbar. So he didn't understand because of the uses of Arabic words fully. He said, that's not permissible in the deen. He said, you keep telling me what the deen says. I want to know what Allah says. Subhanallah. Means he didn't understand. So make sure people understand what we're talking about. Don't just take it for granted that they understand all these Arabic terms. Tayyip, is everything clear except for Imam of the Boom Bap? It's never clear for him. But for everyone else, is it clear? Or you have any questions before we end? I know I took a long time with this scattered thought, but this is a lot of stuff, trying to process it. And then actually trying to live it. That's the hardest part. Processing it is one thing. Then once you process it, then actually doing what you processed. Man, that's difficult. Because you have to put your ego down and have to have some humility and patience, forbearance, all that Sufi stuff. You have to embody it. You know what I mean? It's not easy. But together we can do it. And trust me, together with what we're doing together, right? We're doing it. It's just gradual. We're doing it. And what we see, our reach is far more than what we're physically looking at. Many people are listening and benefiting and following from what we're doing. We just got to stay consistent. No, yeah, it's rough. See, because of what I seen. I told some brothers the other day, I said, man, a lot of us forgot we black. We went to study, we went overseas, we mixed in cultures, and we forgot we was black, right? We forgot we was black. Then we got back here and got smacked in the face and realized you are black. You're not from Saudi Arabia. You're not from Lebanon. You're not from Syria. You're not from Egypt. You same Negro from the inner cities of America. It took us a while to learn that again. We thought we actually arrived to somewhere. And some of us are still stuck there. Trust me, that's one of our biggest problems. Some of us are still stuck, running away from our own reality. But that has happened. We're waking up though. Alhamdulillah. We're waking up and it's inshallah, it's all coming together. Just be patient with one another. Don't lose patience. Right. Tell you, no questions. We're done. We're finished. So tonight is Monday at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, Sheikh Walid Rifai will continue with his class. Tomorrow, the Black Imams Roundtable will continue. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there because I'm traveling tomorrow. So I may miss the Black Imams Roundtable. I'm going to try if I can get internet and stable by the time it happens. But you don't need me when you got Imam of the Boom Bap and Imam Genius. They're very capable to handle it without me. So 2 questions. Go ahead. I have no idea what you're talking about, Farouk. That's way outside my league. You got to ask somebody even know what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know what it is. Reflective image or 3D images and all that, there's difference of opinions among the scholars as to their permissibility, if that's what you're talking about, like pictures and stuff like that. We did have sisters on the Black Imams Roundtable. You missed that episode? Tayyib, barakallahu bikum, inshallah. We'll see y'all again tomorrow morning, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.